This episode is powered by Pantelera. We go inside scaling operations, fix the process, and build the system that keeps it running. So I can
Ooh,
start.
I didn't know until right now, but I've always wanted to do this. Ready?
Go.
Action.
I am here today with Emma Lukian, co-founder and CEO of Good Big Nice, a Montreal kimchi brand, and this is the Forward Deploy Operator, where I sit down with the people who've lived the operational reality of building something real. Not the highlight reel, the actual backend. The co-packer that fell through, the order that didn't ship, the spreadsheet holding the whole company together. And Emma's story is exactly the kind of that this show is about. She took a live fermented product, which I happen to have here. Yes. From small batches all the way to direct distribution with one of the biggest grocery banners in the country and earned a few scars, I can say, on the operations side getting there. Emma, welcome. I'm so happy that you're here today
Me
with me.
too. Thank you so much, EC. Such a nice intro.
Well, I that was my version of you. I do
Yeah.
want before we get into the messy stuff, I want to hear yourself like who are you for the people that do not know everything about Good Big Nice and what is Big Nice? Good Big
Yeah.
Nice.
So, like you said, my name is Emma Lukian. I'm the co-founder of Good Big Nice. We're a fermented foods company based in Montreal. We specialize in kimchi. We also do sauerkrauts and pickles and pickles, but kimchi is really our foundation. I started the company with my husband back in 2020. And like EC said, since then, we've grown from doing it in our home, small little tiny batches, to now having a full-blown SQF certified operation, servicing over 900 points of sales in Quebec, and now growing into the rest of Canada.
I love it. And I love me when somebody can get from their basement into somewhere actually
Yeah.
happening, because this is where I think a lot of brands want to learn today. How do they get there? And just if you don't mind me asking, reminding everybody, 2020. So it's been a good 6 years, five
Yeah, it'll
years,
be 6 years, 6 years in October.
which is something also that I like to remind the people that I work with and the brands. Like it's not from a day one that you're gonna be as big as you want to be. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of infrastructure to put together, a lot of processes, a lot of scars, a lot of
A lot of
learning,
adapting too,
a lot of
because
adapting too.
I feel like the company that we ran for the first 4.5 years is different from the company that we run now. Totally. There was
Totally.
a full turning point, and yeah. So yes, it's been 6 years, but in my mind, it almost feels like only two.
Yes, I can feel that. So there's a little tradition on this show where the previous guest leaves a question for the next one. And the person who left it, they knew that it was somebody on the operation, on the brand side that runs their own operations on that scale.
Yeah.
And this is the question that they left for you. If you, before you make your next hire, or you're bringing somebody into your team to fix your operations, your tag, whatever it is that you think you're fixing, there is one thing that they believe, and I believe that too, that you should be able to answer yourself.
That I should be able to answer myself, or the hire
Yes,
should?
you should be able to answer this question before you hire somebody else.
Mhm.
Do you know what is your biggest bottleneck or constraint right now?
You know what my biggest bottleneck and constraint is that I don't have a big enough team. That's exactly what my bottleneck is.
Okay, well,
True.
it's good to know,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
what we find is that you might be thinking that is actually that you don't have a big enough team. It's good to understand why
Yeah. Yeah.
behind
Our
that.
bottleneck is there's too many heads doing too many tasks. And it leaves it so that some people should be focusing on bigger or like zoomed out things, and we end up getting bogged down in these little day-to-day things, and that's too messy. It's a perfect question, because we need to start hiring somebody new.
Well, amazing. This is the perfect platform.
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna put this out there, and then people are gonna find out more, and they're gonna come reaching out for sure.
I don't even
So
have to look through CVs.
I want to go back into the starting of Good
Hmm.
Big Nice. I want you to share with us, like, when did you realize that this is what you wanted to do? How did you start? And I've heard the story when I crashed your coffee date with one of my customers, and I just, like, I fell in love with
Yeah.
your story. I want you to share with the world now.
Yeah. Well, prior to us starting, I keep saying us because I do mean myself and Nikita, my husband, who started the company with me. Him and I had a company prior to the pandemic. We were doing catering, office catering, and a part of our menu, like our sandwiches, our salads, all that stuff, we were making fermented foods. We were using kimchi and sauerkraut. We couldn't find it anywhere, and what we could find, we didn't like. So we were making it ourselves, and it was something that people loved. So when we lost the company overnight, like many people did, we just spent that summer of 2020 going like, what are we going to do? Because I don't want to go back to doing a 9 to 5 job. Like we really needed to pivot. And it was Nikita's idea. He said, look, if we can't find kimchi to put into our menu, that means other people can't find it. There's not that many products available in the grocery stores. Let's try to put this in a jar and see what we can do. And so sure enough, we made one phone call. We called a little local grocery store here in the plateau where we live, just to ask, would there be an interest? Do you think, what do you, and they placed an order for stuff that we really and truly did not have. We had no business saying yes to that order, but we did.
And
That's when
I
we
love,
started.
yeah, I love how you said that. Well, he mentioned, okay, we could just put kimchi into a jar. And it's, when did you realize that this was going to be a operations, like, heavy
It took me
thing?
a long time to fully get on board. I mean, we were both fully on board in terms of, we never went back to any other jobs. We started this, but I think I was just kind of reacting myself personally. I was just kind of reacting to losing the company, and he had this idea, and then this grocery store said, yes, we would be interested. We'll place an order. Okay, so let's just start making this product. And then it was react. It took me probably, I think, a year into doing it where I fully stepped back and went, okay, hold on. I think this is something that we're actually going to do. Let's put a plan on paper. Let's really fully commit to this mentally, that this is going to be what we did. But Nikita believed in it day one. Day one, he knew that this is what we're going to do and it's going to work.
And he believed in it. It's part of his culture to be eating this
Yeah.
constantly.
Yeah,
So would you
exactly.
say that it's an important thing for whoever is behind the product to actually believe or know the product from inside out before getting into?
It made a huge difference for us because, like you said, yeah, Nikita comes from Khabarovsk, Russia. So he grew up there his whole life, moved here, had the habit of eating all these fermented foods. And I didn't. I grew up here in Quebec and wasn't really a part of my culture growing up. But having him fully being like, yes, this is, everybody should be eating this. Every grocery store should have it. It really kept pushing us, because if not, I think there would have been a few times where I just went, look, I don't know, man. This seems, I don't think enough people know this product. It seems too niche. It seems too tough. But yeah, he was kind of the engine that kept pushing that forward. Thank God.
It's thank God for those husbands,
Yeah.
right? It's I love then going from that one grocery store that said, yes, let's do it,
Mhm.
to having your own co-packer. There was a lot that happened there. And I read on articles that you built the first SQF
Mhm.
certified kimchi productions in Canada.
It's actually the second. It's the second. It's one of the first, so we can't.
One of the first.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
But the
It's
first in
top
Eastern
top
Canada,
three.
I guess we could say, if we wanted to.
Yeah. So how did that happen? Like, how did you go from, okay, we're shipping orders from our facility
Yeah.
inside our house, building it in our kitchen,
Yeah. We
to,
started in our house, like you said. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
oh
We
God.
started in our house, and then within about 6 months moved into a smaller facility that we built ourselves, just a little commercial kitchen, I guess you could say, that we had built. We always knew kind of from day one that that place was on borrowed time. It was too small. We had a very low ceiling of how many jars we could produce per month. And we knew, like, this is a product very low margin, so we need high volume if we want to make any kind of money. Finding a co-packer took almost 5 years for us to find one. And every single person, co-packers and not co-packers, told us, no, we're not going to do it. You're never, ever going to find a co-packer to do this. Our competitors told us that they couldn't do it for us. I even went on Dans l'œil de dragon, and on the episode, they told us, you will never find a co-packer to do this. It can't be done. Like, fully impossible. And it made sense. I mean, we contacted so many co-packers, and they all said no for very good reasons, right? Fermented foods, like you said, it's alive. It's a volatile product. It's not a pasteurized ketchup that you just make one day, pack the same day, and then you can keep it outside of the fridge. Like, it's constantly changing. You have to cold pour it. It's not a liquid. Like, there's so many points of doing this at large scale that is very difficult to do and is not already sort of the baseline of how a factory would work. So, oh my gosh, we spent so much time. We even, to talk about a funny, like, messy story, while we were on this journey of needing to find a co-packer, there was somebody who told us yes. And they're like, you can come and do a test with us. We'll test making the product. The only time you can come is this week. And it was a week where we had a vacation planned with friends. We canceled our vacation. We drove 7.5 hours in a huge snowstorm with our baby and with our the grandfather, Nikita's dad, because he had to watch the baby while we're doing this. Like, we almost died on the road. There was such a big whiteout from this snowstorm. Anyways, we get to the co-packer, and within 2 minutes, Nikita and I looked at each other and we're like, this is not going to work. They can't do this for us. We knew immediately, like, this, it can't work. So we felt so defeated. It was really hard. For us, there was really a turning point where we had to start asking ourselves, you know, okay, everybody's telling us we can't do this. Everybody is saying no. Why? You know, like, we kept looking, I kept like, felt like we were forcing like a square peg into a round hole.
Yes. Yes.
So it's like, okay, we're not going to find, the system doesn't exist yet. So let's find a co-packer who's willing or curious enough to build this with us, who's open enough to be like, this sounds cool. We could maybe see something here, you know, and kind of incentivize them to want to try. And once we started looking for that person versus finding the factory that worked, it was almost overnight. Like, we found them immediately, just
That's
found the right
amazing.
people. And yeah,
That's amazing. And being able to recognize this is not working, I'm not dropping it. I'm going to shift my speech, and then let's find somebody that is willing to work with me instead of I'm going to adapt my product to what the market is or whatever is available out there, or I'm just going to drop it. It's the consistency, the grit of.
I think that happens to a lot of people. You know, you have a product and you're trying, there's already a certain amount of systems that exist out there. And if yours doesn't fit into it, we're kind of programmed to go, okay, well, yeah, it doesn't work. I need to change something. But if the system doesn't exist yet, and if you're pretty certain that you could make it work, you got to build the system yourself.
So let me ask you, were you already in large groceries before you had your co-packer, or
that was the turning point of, we had always wanted a co-packer because it's, as you know, it's just two separate career paths. You're either running a factory or you're running a brand. We never wanted to do both. So we were constantly looking for a co-packer. But once Metro said yes to us, we were approached by Metro. And this was in July of 2024. They approached us and they said, we want to list your products. They said, we're going to get you on the shelves in 8 to 12 weeks, is what they told us. Wow. And they said, but we can't accept your products the way they are now because you do need some form of very strict safety certifications.
And that is
the SQF one.
The SQF.
So whether it's SQF, HACCP, you need some form of very strict, rigorous safety program in place at your factory to bring in a product that is fermented, right? So that was when we went, okay. So the summer of 2024, we're like, this is where we knew if we don't get a co-packer, we do not get Metro. And also we can't grow. Where else are we going to go? We wouldn't be able to get anybody. Sobeys, you can't leave your province with a fermented product unless you have this type of certification. So Metro just telling us yes was the fire that
lit you up.
Yeah. Well, that's where it helped us with the turning point where we started to say, okay, we need to look somewhere different. We need to shift how we're looking for this partner.
And was that the only thing when you landed that conversation with Metro? Would you say that that was the only operational obstacle that you faced, or was there anything else that you can say that nobody warned me this was gonna take all of this XYZ?
For us, it was a bit different because, you know what? I think had we gotten our products onto the shelves in 8 to 12 weeks, like Metro said, then yes, there would have been all of these things like nobody told me about the promo calendar or all these chargebacks, unloading fees, that it costs an arm and a fucking leg to ship refrigerated pallets, and that you have to schedule it. And there's all these operational logistic things that I wouldn't have known, but because it took us so long, like Metro called us in July of 2024, but we only launched in June of 2025. It took 11 months for us to get that co-packing relationship and system built. And during that 11 months, we were talking to everybody we knew who was already doing like direct to distribution centers. So we were given the heads up for all of that sort of stuff. So for my case specifically, no, there wasn't particularly anything where I felt like, whoa, I was not expecting this. But that's only because I took my sweet ass time getting.
And you say sweet time. However, there are some co-packers, depending on where you are working, like which commodity we're talking about specifically.
Yeah.
I've seen some co-packers proposals saying if you want us to do R&D, it's a 2-year process. It's not even 11 months. So it was, yes, and it's important for other brands out there that are starting or that are at that inflection point of deciding, do we go with a co-packer facility? Do we build our own manufacturing? Whatever it is, it does take time. Groceries and distributors, they are aware of this. So it is part of the process. It is just what it takes.
Maybe actually, now that you've said this, that made me think of something. Maybe that is something I didn't think about when Metro had started, when they had approached us, is how long it would take. Like, if you know, we stressed so much when they told us 8 to 12 weeks. We ran around like idiots. We were trying so hard. We hired new employees. Hurry. We have to do a production. This was before we knew we really, really needed the co-packer. And all these things, we were panicking. And if somebody then would have said, yeah, just relax, man, because nothing is happening in 8
tomorrow.
weeks.
Yeah, that's it.
So now anytime we have these new contracts opening, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, whatever. In a year from now, we've got time. We have time.
So you're distributing to the rest of Canada. Are you exporting to the US, or were you at any point?
Yet. No, we haven't yet. It was always something on our roadmap. But then, like you said, when the Minimus and all this other stuff started to happen, we just pedaled back a little bit and shifted and said, okay, let's just continue doing really focused, targeted markets in Canada. There's still so many markets for us to get here, you know, not even just in retail, in food service and industrial size kimchi, all these other things. So we just decided to focus on that instead of exporting to the US for now.
Amazing. And that is a whole other set of a kind of worms that gets open when you want to export outside the country. And it's you'll see when you're ready to make that leap. We can talk more about it. It's intense, and now with the recent Kuzma announcement that they made that it's gonna get renewed every year, you don't really know what's happening every year.
How are you supposed to make decisions if there's such a huge variable every year? You don't know what's going to happen.
Yes. So in that sense, do you do production planning, or your team, whoever does it? Do you do production planning? How does that work? Do you look at because I'm curious, this is a very, like, probably nobody else cares about this. I do. I'm very curious about how how do you look at your demand? Like, what are you doing with that?
Yeah. I mean, of course, we do have a system in place, like a good old Excel sheet that helps us forecast as best as possible based on, we usually do like a best case scenario and realistic and then a worst case. And then we always plan our productions around like realistic and best. It's kind of simple. It's just based on what we know our volumes already are and where we hope that they'll be, right? Any contract that we might be in talks with, we always try to plan production, hoping that the contract will go through so that we have enough stock. We're also very lucky. We have a long shelf life, right? It's 12 months for our product. So we don't we don't have the same like real tight logistical issues that people who make a product that's 30 days where you're really being safe with your productions because you don't want to lose stock. So we have a
Mm-hmm.
bit more flexibility, but honestly, doing forecasting and projections for production, it is a little bit like a hope and a prayer. It's like we were talking about how there's so many variables. Sometimes, you start working with a new big contract. We just start working with Sobeys recently. We don't know what the volume is going to be like. You can make the best educated guess that you can, but you don't want to overshoot it because that f's up your cash flow. You don't want to under. So it's always sort of a delicate dance of trying to figure out how much should we be producing. But again,
You
our co-packer partners are really fantastic. Like we don't have a minimum. We can do smaller productions. We can slot one in once a month. So we have a lot of flexibility and freedom.
flexibility, that is a very important thing in CPG and in any product-based industry. Having
Yeah.
flexibility on your manufacturing, it is what is going to take you to places.
Oh
Because
yeah.
as you say, it's anything can happen. Like I can tell you many stories. I think I already mentioned in our previous conversation. There was a trailer, a container that fell off the ship going from
Which
China to
sounds
the
like a
Dominican
movie.
Republic,
It just
and you're like,
sounds fake.
you've been waiting for this product for 6 months, and then
Uh-huh.
sorry, we have to let you know that we need to call the insurance because it fell in the middle of the ocean, and you're like,
Yeah.
what do we do with this now? So
Yeah.
that flexibility of being able to produce things fast or with the smaller or zero, ideally no
Yeah.
minimums, it's a very important thing.
It's huge.
And I want to make sure that I talk a little bit about this because you said your old Excel sheet. I've worked in large organizations, enterprise level, and I've had to plan over 30,000 different SKUs with Excel sheets. That is, it happens.
I have
Excel,
6, and sometimes I'm like, "Whoo, it's tough."
yeah, it's Excel is not going away,
Oh,
and it's no matter how much AI we want to put into, people are gonna one.
yeah.
It's like, sorry, I have to laugh about it. It's I've had people ask me for features because sometimes we end up having to do a workflow to automate certain things,
Yeah.
or an even custom tool, like a specific. And the one thing that I keep hearing is that, can you put me an export button so I can export to Excel the data? Like, but you have a dashboard that
Yeah.
tells you everything you have to do. No, people need to
Good
massage
point. Yeah.
the information, and by people I mean even me.
Yeah. Oh, no, I love an Excel sheet. I mean,
It's
love hate,
amazing.
love hate.
Yeah, it's a love and hate relationship. It's definitely so. On that sense of using all Excel and everything, is there anything that you have automated in your processes internally that are you using AI of any sorts or not yet?
So yeah, for things that we automate, I don't automate much with AI, honestly. It's I use it for things stupid, but like answer this email, respond to this, double check my calendar to see what I should be paying attention to, double check these emails, tell me what's the most important to answer. But in terms of using it to automate any kind of like workflow, I'm still just not there.
I know.
I don't know if I
I
self
know your
I don't know if
mommy
I trust it
should.
all
Your
the way.
mommy should be using AI. I know. I know.
You know
But
what it is? It's because I don't understand fully how to properly use it and how to use proper prompts. So when I try, I feel like I make a mess more than anything else.
yes.
You
So
think
you're gonna
so?
have to sign up for the podcast, and you're gonna hear a lot of tips and tricks on that.
Exactly.
So if you had an AI assistant embedded from day one,
Oh, yeah.
ha, what's the one decision it should be flagging you automatically? Like,
What's the one thing I want him flagging automatically? I want him figuring out my contribution margin so that I actually know how much money I'm making for each channel, for each SKU, for each channel.
I heard the CEO of Organic Traditions talk about the units of economics so much that she needed to understand early to make the trajectory different.
It took us a
Information.
long time to actually figure out how much cash we were making and not just revenue or gross sales, and like way longer than I want to admit. And so that would be, if I could have that automated from day one, it would have made us make some different decisions at the beginning. That's for sure.
Food for thought, easy. Food for thought. Next projects to
Yeah.
develop. What is the one operational decision that you almost didn't make that you think changed the business? And I can think of some based on what you have shared already. But what
Yeah.
is the one thing that you said I almost don't go that route, and it paid off?
I mean, probably the co-packer one is a big one, just because, not to say we almost didn't find a co-packer, but I can see many instances in time where we did almost want to give up and just say, well, forget about it. We'll just do a different, we'll do something else. But I think that too is, it's not so much like one big decision, but for a while we were thinking very small. Like, it took me a long time to accept that I should be thinking like a big business, even though I am a small business. And I didn't want to for a while. And it was really Nikita who had said, we need to be making decisions today based on where we want to end up. And as soon as I stopped resisting that, and like that's sort of the thing I almost didn't do, was I almost kept thinking small because it's what's
Mm.
happening in the present. So clicking into that mindset of stop thinking about your decisions based on where you are today and start really forward thinking, doing that really drastically changed a lot. It made me stop wasting time doing things that were only servicing me in the present, and that that no longer service me in any way today.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing to hear that. And to continue with our little tradition, one last thing I want from you. So, the next person in this seat is going to be somebody involved in solving operational problems in their
Okay.
own business or for somebody else, in any industry, product, or not. What is the one question you would like them to answer? And it can be as specific as you want. Like, I will
Yeah.
figure out how they're going to answer that.
I'd want to know, like, if they can remember, when is the lowest that they ever felt, and they really thought like, this is the time. I'm quitting now. Like, I am not solving this problem. I'm not figuring it out. I am throwing a match behind me and I'm walking away. Because I've found that sometimes when I've asked that questions, to like our other founders and friends, the answer is surprisingly silly. It's usually something so small. You would think it would be like this massive problem, but they're like, no, it was like the one day that order was late, and I just said, I'm out.
I'm done.
Yeah. So I want to know, yeah, did they feel the absolute lowest and they really considered just quitting?
I will have to add to that question, how did they get out of that
Yeah,
thought?
and why?
Because
Why?
and what made them get out
Yeah,
of
what
it?
made them switch?
Yeah, good. Well, thank you so much for this,
Oh, you're
Emma.
so
I really
welcome.
appreciate it.
This is the reality. You want to see the
Yeah,
messy reality behind it,
yes.
growing a CPG business when you have 2 kids? This is what it is. We just deal with it later.
We have to adapt. That's it. That was Emma Lukian of Good Big Nice, a life product, a production built to a food safety standard most founders never touch, a major grocery banner, a young family, and everything in between. This is what the back end of a growing operation actually looks like. And if you're running one in any industry, you probably recognize your own somewhere in there. And if you recognize your own operation in Emma's story, the mess you can feel but you can't quite point at, that's the work I do. I go inside growing businesses, map how the work actually flows, and build a system that let it run without one person holding it all together. That's it for this one. Follow the show so the next episode finds you. And the newsletter goes out every Tuesday. Link below. See you next time on the Forward Deployed Operation.